Good morning from the UK, and obviously good afternoon to those who are listening in and dialing in from India. I want to welcome you to this launch of the UKIBC SEI report. This is a journey that started in the High Commissioner's Garden in November 2019, and we launched this report to focus on the SEI contribution of UK businesses in India. And we're pleased to have been working very closely with the United Nations Development Programme in this examination of the impact of UK businesses in India. And if I remember rightly, when the report was launched, this was a somewhat unique event insofar as it was the first time that a sector, a country sector within an area had actually focused on its own contribution into SDG goals of the UNDP. I'm pleased to say that we have a wonderful group of panelists and experts who are going to celebrate the launch of the report. We have Gavin McGillivray, who is the Minister Counsellor of Development and Development Director of the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office in India. We have Mr. Shoko Noda, who is the resident representative of UNDP in India. We were due to have Mr. Amitabh Kant, but unfortunately, due to the demise of a senior member's mother in NITI Aayog, he unfortunately is unable to attend, but he has given us or prepared a very interesting video conference. We have Abanti Sankaranarayanan, who is the Chief Strategy and Corporate Affairs Officer of Diageo in India. So I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion that we're going to have. And also, I'm very much looking forward to launching the report during this affair. So thank you very much for joining us. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Gavin to give his address. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for that introduction. So I'm just going to try and put my presentation up, if I may. Good. Is that visible? Can somebody say yes or no?
Yes, that is, Gavin.
Okay, Richard, thank you for the introduction, and I'm looking forward to this afternoon. I'm going to skip through this presentation, and because there are people present today that are much more knowledgeable about the UK business contribution to India's socio-economic development, which is the major part of the UK's contribution to India's development, I'll concentrate on what the British government, a few examples of what the British government has been doing. And there's figures which you will all be familiar with on the connections between our two economies. That's a little bit less familiar is the British government's presence here. So we have the British High Commission, 9 Deputy High Commissions. The Fcdo, building on what was DFID, has a program, has £313 million invested in Indian startups and MSMEs. The British government's 100% owned DFI, CDC, has 1.8 billion invested in here, the largest bilateral DFI in India. Newton Baba rather, it's a very large R&D collaboration with India. And just one example of our collaboration is that we believe that we were influential in helping India set its nationally determined contribution in Paris in 2015. I'm sorry that NITI is not present today, because we are working closely with NITI and with the UN, with the UN Res Reps office. We work closely with Shoko and her UNDP colleagues in other fields, essentially to help or to partner with India in terms of its capacity to measure its achievement of the various SDGs. So on the website of the UN and of NITI Aayog, you will find the SDG Index and dashboard, and we have had a number of streams of work to inform the picture that paints. So we've worked with on the business assessment report. Also, quite excitingly, and this work is just starting, we're going to be working with UNDP and India on the multidimensional poverty index. Those of us that work in development in India will know that the statistics available on development are quite out of date, and this will update all of our understanding on the SDGs in India. We're working both at the central level and at the state level. CDC I've mentioned. This is the British government's investment body. It's autonomously run. The British government sets the strategy for it, and then it invests solely in private companies. In India, 1.8 billion, over 377 businesses. The largest sectors of investment is the financial sector, the infrastructure sector, and the healthcare sector. Increasing cross-cutting issue or opportunity for CDC is investment in climate-related businesses, and its largest single investment is with Ayana Renewable Power, which is one of the largest platforms for investing in utility-scale renewable energy in India. It also has strong investments across the health sector in India. I'm going to skip this because I think this work of Shell and BP will be covered better by others. One area that we, the Fcdo, have invested in is the Green Growth Equity Fund, where we put up 120 million. We invested 120 million pounds alongside 120 million pounds from India's National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. And the intention of that was, one, to invest in green infrastructure in India, which it is doing well, but two, to become a platform for international investment in India. And BP has committed 70 million, and we are hopeful that we will be announcing further investments in the Green Growth Equity Fund shortly. We have activities together with Arup in the water sector, with Mott MacDonald in the infrastructure sector, and we can come back to any or all of these when we come to the panel discussion if people want to go into more detail. And then I mentioned the Fcdo DevCap portfolio. This is something that the British Development Programme, which used to be under DFID and is now under the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, we don't do this anywhere else in the world. In India, we give no aid at all. What we do is we invest ODA in funds alongside the Indian government. So the Indian government, through the NIIF, the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, through the State Bank of India, through the Small Industries Development Bank of India, through the National Housing Bank, we have funds with each of these bodies, and then those funds invest in sectors which find it difficult to attract private investment. The idea is to invest where the private sector is reluctant to invest, show that you can do good business in difficult sectors, and thereby precipitate follow-on investment, making markets work better for all Indians. And then just my final point is that we have a collaboration with India, looking at India's impact, seeking to strengthen India's positive impact on other developing countries. And we have activities with India on innovation transfer, on India's trade activities, on India's investment, the Exim Bank, and activities with India on its development cooperation program. So that just gives I suppose, a snapshot of some of the things we are doing. And with that, Richard, I'll close and hand back to you. Thank you.
Gavin, thank you very much indeed. I mean, that's a wonderful kind of overview of the activities that you're undertaking. If I can now hand over to Ms. Shoko Noda, who, as I said before, is the resident representative in India for the UNDP, who we were just saying beforehand, the last time we actually physically sat down together was in February 2020, and unfortunately that was the last time I was in India. But let me hand over to Ms. Noda. I'm very looking forward to hearing your address.
Thank you very much, Richard. It's great to see you, Gavin, Abanti, Jayant, and all the audience. We can't really see you, but I feel your presence. I'm really delighted to be here to celebrate the launch of this important report. But it's not only about the report itself, but the partnership that we have been proud of. It looks as if it was only yesterday, but Richard, as you rightly said, we jointly launched that campaign in November 2019. I remember at the High Commissioner's residence, where I probably met a lot of participants in this forum as well, and it was a very high-spirited, very cheerful meeting, and I was very impressed with the commitment. And then also already we have some success stories at that point to hear, and we are so glad that now the report is being launched. Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, or global goals that we say, really provide us with the perfect roadmap. I sometimes say also a kind of menu to build nations and communities, to make them sustainable, more sustainable, resilient, and inclusive. While India has been doing very well in many domains, I think COVID-19 pandemic has, of course, reversed some of the progress we have made in no time. For example, some surveys say that pandemic and the consequent economic crisis have seen 122 million people losing their jobs in India. There was also a recent media report citing a report that estimates that the number of poor people in India has gone up by 75 million, while about 32 million Indians have been pushed out of the middle class. Since India is a huge, one of the biggest countries, the scale of impact and then the number also becomes very high. And that's why we've been saying the importance and role of private sector for many years, but it was again a reminder how important the private sector is in pushing the economies in the current context, reviving economies and livelihood. Industries and business can really play an unparalleled role by bringing their knowledge, resources, and expertise to increase jobs and livelihoods. And then the report really outline the success stories and also opportunities. India is indeed an economic powerhouse and has experienced nominal growth in recent years. And there are there are huge opportunities. So it's encouraging to see how the government of India has been instrumental in shaping 2030 agenda by introducing, for example, index that Gavin, you have also just mentioned. There's a lot of great ideas and schemes that we have, we see in India. But the path to inclusive development and recovery is not smooth, and it requires, each of us to play our roles and then put the people at the center. We firmly believe that the private sector, as I said, can and should play a role in fostering growth and well-being across domains with their commitment, investment, and ideas. We are also connected more than ever through technology and business and global commitments. So it is really time when the good practices adopted from leading cooperation can be shared across countries, not within India, not within the UK, but really I hope that this report will be shared much beyond these two countries, and we will be happy from UNDP side, UN side, to do so, to showcase the commitment and then the excellent work that has been taken. Really heartening to see how UK corporations are also actively contributing to India's socio-economic development and CSR agenda. At UNDP, we are also, for example, proud to be collaborating with companies such as Unilever or HSBC, as well as through development cooperation channels through Fcdo to address development issues and challenges at different levels, from national level to the community level. With Hindustan Unilever, our focus is on plastic waste management, for example, and circular economy. Through our joint program, also with Hindustan Coca-Cola and HDFC, our bank, we have collected 66,000 metric tons of waste and empowered 5,500 waste pickers in 36 Indian cities. And our ambitions remains high, and we would like to expand this work. Yes, there's so much more that the private sector can still do to improve social and environmental issues as we recover from pandemic. So our partnership with UKIBC and the launch of the report is a key milestone in taking stock on how we can really develop effective collaborations to get back to track on achieving SDGs. And platforms like really UKIBC are critical in bringing the government, all the development partners, bilateral partners, UN agencies, CSOs, and everybody, British companies in India together through this policy support and socio-economic interventions. So there is a significant contribution that UK corporation can really make to India's socio-economic development and recovery across different domains. The most prominently equality, education, gender, health and well-being. These are all highlighted in the report. And we at UNDP really look forward to developing more partnership with you all, the UK-based companies, to help achieve these goals and make really meaningful progress on SDGs in India, to ensure that we leave no one behind. So once again, thank you very much for this partnership, and we look forward to our expanded collaboration. Over to you, Richard.
Ms. Noda, thank you very much indeed. And just to reiterate, that we are ourselves grateful for the support and leadership that UNDP has given, and you yourself have given some very interesting points that you make there, and I'm going to tease some of those out in the panel discussion that we have a little bit later. But now, if I might ask my colleagues to put onto the screen the video which Mr. Amitabh Kant has kindly sent in, and as I said, I'm sorry that he's not with us, but I'm sure that we can all understand the reasons why he's unable to come. Anyway, over to you, Daxa.
Mr. McGillivray, Mr. Richard Hill, Ms. Shoko Noda, ladies and gentlemen. I'm extremely pleased to join this conversation about the socio-economic impact of UK businesses in India, as the story has been extremely positive and promising. It's happening in an environment where business action for development has gained center stage, and the focus has inextricably shifted to creation of sustainable value. There is a new urgency created in the post-COVID-19 world. The traditional boundaries of responsibilities are hugely blurred, that businesses primarily provide goods and services towards driving economic growth, and government is responsible for basic services. It has demonstrated that responsibility for social well-being and security is an indivisible attribute all actors, including the businesses, will have to discharge with all the compassion, creativity, and resourcefulness at their command. India did suffer a massive impact under the COVID-19 pandemic across the economy and society. A four-pillar strategy of containment, fiscal, financial, and long-term structural reforms was adopted, which promoted a rapid V-shaped recovery. India is the only country to have adopted structural reform strategy to expand supply in the medium to long term and avoid long-term damage to productive capacities. India remained a preferred investment destination even while the pandemic was raging. Net FPI inflows posted an all-time monthly high of US $9.8 billion in November 20. India was the only emerging market economy to receive equity FII inflows in 2020. A strong V-shaped recovery in the industry sector is indicated by IIP, which recovered very radically in January 21 as compared to a growth of 2.1% in November 2019 and a drastic slump of negative 57.3% in April 2020. Industrial activities are expected to gather further momentum on account of increase in government capital expenditure, accelerating COVID-19 vaccination drive, and resolute push to long pending reforms. Government efforts to boost the enabling environment are strongly evidenced by an improvement of 67 ranks in the ease of doing business index over the last 3 years. It is also the highest jump by any large country since 2011. It is very encouraging that India entered the top 50 innovating countries for the first time in 2020 since the inception of the Global Innovation Index in 2007 and ranked first in Central and South Asia. This has been greatly facilitated by the disproportionately large share of the government sector in total gross domestic expenditure on R&D. A large increase in the business sector's contribution to R&D is desirable and can further ramp up the innovation quotient in the country. Despite the unprecedented COVID-19 crisis, pursuit of SDGs remain at the core of India's development strategy. India has taken several proactive steps to mainstream the SDGs into the policies, schemes, and programs at the central as well as state levels. Commendable strides have been made in localization of SDGs across the states and union territories. They are implementing the SDG vision and action plans, have set up cross-sectoral implementation structures, and developed monitoring systems based on state as well as district-level indicator frameworks. Mutually assisted learning and action on SDGs among the states and union territories is fast becoming a signal element of cooperative federalism in India. I'm glad to share that our efforts of monitoring SDGs through the SDG Index continues to be widely noticed and applauded around the world. It remains a rare data-driven initiative to rank subnational governments by computing a composite index on SDGs. It has been vastly successful in driving the aspiration and efforts of the states and UTs towards SDG implementation. With regard to progress on SDGs, there is a continuous improvement noticed both at national and subnational levels. There is remarkable progress in 4 very crucial goals. Goal 3, good health and well-being. Goal 6, clean water and sanitation. Goal 7, affordable and clean energy. And Goal 11, sustainable cities and communities. However, in respect of Goal 2, zero hunger, and Goal 5, gender equality, we will initiate a lot of forward movement. I'm glad to note that the UK businesses have made substantial contribution on all goals, especially on goals 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 and 13. I'm also glad to note that the transformative areas to focus that the study has identified, that is good health, good quality education, gender equality, WASH, energy, climate, industry, innovation and sustainable cities, are fully in sync with the strategic thrust to the National Development Agenda of India. I would expect the UK businesses and the private sector organizations as a whole to partner with Government of India at the state level and bring in innovations and implementation efficiency. The government is willing to extend all necessary policy and governance support to facilitate success on ground. I look forward to hearing more about the experiences and expectations of the UK businesses in India and issues around them. I have no doubt whatsoever that their greater engagement in India would be a prolific source of success and breakthroughs for all stakeholders involved. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, I'm sure that we all agree that that was extremely powerful and interesting delivery. As I said, we will certainly come back to Mr. Kant on a number of the points that he outlined, and also some of the conclusions that the report has flagged. But in terms of aligning the direction of travel with those of the Indian government, that is a very positive thing to develop. So if I might turn to Abanti Sankaranarayanan, who, as I said previously, is Chief Strategy Corporate Affairs Officer for Diageo. I also should add that she is a board member of mine on UKIBC. So I'm doubly grateful for your efforts, but I'm looking forward to hearing the efforts of Diageo in this important area. Abanti.
Thank you, Richard, for the opportunity to share my thoughts on the UK industry, especially Diageo India's experience and contribution to India's socio-economic story. As Mr. Amitabh Kant rightly pointed out, the responsibility for social well-being and security, particularly after the pandemic, assumes a new focus and urgency, and an area where private sector has to play its role. And we as Diageo India are absolutely up for the task, building on the good work that we have done. Diageo has been in India for over 20 years, initially as Diageo India Private Limited, and then through our acquisition of 56% stake in United Spirits Limited for $3.5 billion back in 2014. With this, we are the leading alcobev company in India, just as we are internationally and globally as well. Diageo is a global spirits company headquartered in London and was adjudged as UK's #1 most admired company 3 years ago. As an FTSE company, Diageo India was ranked #1 in 2017 on corporate governance, something that we are extremely proud of, particularly because of the nature of the industry in which we operate, especially in a country like India. In India, we believe that we are changing the way this industry operates on doing business the right way, as well as being a responsible company. I will now spend a minute or so on the economic contribution that we make, and I'm just checking if right. Okay, can you see the screen? Can somebody shout?
Yes, we can, Abanti.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so like I said, we are India's leading company in the beverage alcohol space. But here is a chart which kind of broadly captures the direct and indirect economic contribution of Diageo India. We have a large number of manufacturing units in the country, so 58 factories. So we are absolutely a poster child for Make in India. We employ 3,500 people directly, but very importantly, through our procurement activities as well as agricultural procurement, we create nearly 200,000 additional jobs. Given the nature of taxation in our industry, we contribute about 40,000 crores annually through excise and central taxes into the state and central government. About 10,000 women have been empowered by our social impact programs, and we have reached 25 million people through our Road to Safety awareness programs, the last two being kind of the social impact that we are starting to see happening through Diageo India's interventions in the country. I also want to say, and this talks to the point that Ms. Noda made earlier about the private sector role through investment, ideas, creativity, and resourcefulness, but also importantly, she mentioned measurement. And Diageo have proudly led the first of its kind creative advocacy work on a G2G platform to measure and highlight the future economic value potential that could be unlocked between India and UK, delivering huge economic benefits to both the countries through the UK-India trade review discussions, which are currently underway. We have played a significant role in co-creating measurement, analysis, and therefore economic value capture of what further liberalization of trade and investment between the two countries can create for our industry. At an industry level, we play a leading role as Diageo in engaging with state governments to offer solutions which are win-win for industry as well as state governments, consumer, and society at large. But let me now quickly come on to the role that we play in furthering the SDGs through the social intervention work we do. In the last 5 years, we have invested significantly in water conservation, women empowerment, skill development, issues of drunk driving, and the cause of road safety in India. Very recently, we have launched a much more bolder ambition for India, which we call Society 2030. And this is really Diageo's 10-year action plan to help create a more inclusive and sustainable world. And this builds on the strong foundations that we have had in the last few years, but takes it further, recognizing the urgency of corporations playing a much bigger role as we go into the future. For us in India, the three big areas of focus will be water stewardship, what we call positive drinking, which is essentially promoting moderation and addressing alcohol harm, and creating inclusive communities. I'm very, very proud and privileged to say that Diageo India has been invited by FICCI Water Mission to lead the working group on corporate water stewardship. This allows Diageo to set the direction of corporate water stewardship discourse and be at the front end of government and industry engagement efforts on water, which, as we know, is a very, very dire and crying need in this country. I want to just share some of the work that we do on responsible drinking and how we have taken this actually to the armed forces and what we have received, which we are very humbled and privileged by, is huge recognition, but also gratitude for our programs to take responsible drinking and education on that front and promotion of moderation into India's armed forces. And you can see that through an appreciation letter. And what we are very proud to actually see is the acknowledgement that it's very seldom that you find a company in our industry to come forward and take the efforts to educate consumers. These are just some testimonial, these are some session glimpses, and I just thought I would add some color to what we are trying to do here. We have actually conducted about 20 sessions in 6 states just in the last 3 months since things opened up a bit, benefiting nearly 3,000 armed force officials and their families. We are also taking the message of moderation and responsible consumption, again, that's an SDG goal, into educational institutions and into youth. And we have done this across business schools, reached more than 1,000 students with the message of moderation. The final thing that I want to say is going back again to Ms. Koda's comment about creativity, ideas, and resourcefulness of the private sector. And one of the big interventions that we are making in the world, but also in India, is a more progressive gender portrayal in advertising. As advertisers, we absolutely recognize that we need to lead the change and create a more inclusive and diverse society. And therefore, Diageo is part of something called the Unstereotype Alliance, which is an alliance of like-minded organizations to come together and to start changing the way brands advertise and engage with consumers, all in the effort towards building a more inclusive and gender parity world. Thank you. With that, I will hand it back to Richard.
Abanti, thank you very much indeed. It was extremely useful to see what business is doing from a, if you like, from a practical point of view. So thank you very much indeed. What I'd like to do is spend a very short period of time just explaining a little bit around the research report, and then to actually digitally, if you like, launch the report through the publication of a QR code, which will allow us and everyone on this to access the report virtually. So if I can ask Daxa, if you could possibly put up the first slide. Thank you. Just very briefly, I'm sure that many of you know that the UK India Business Council, formed in 2008, is a company which focuses on building economic prosperity between the UK and India. We do that through focusing on key aspects of both social and economic activities between Indian companies in the UK and UK companies in India. Strategic advice and technical support helps those companies that we deal with to understand and expand in both India and in the UK. And where we are at the present moment, particularly in a post-COVID environment, of which we're hopefully going to be going into soon, then this becomes ever more important. UK and India are extraordinarily important economic partners. We've heard about that. And I think just to reinforce the point, what we have seen in the past 12 months in relation to collaboration because of COVID and not despite COVID is, I think, something that we can build on extremely strongly in order to take this initiative forward. If we can have the next slide, please. The report, which we worked with Ms. Noda's organisation and UNDP in India, it combines surveys and case studies and interviews to give an overall view of what businesses are doing in India relative to the United Nations Sustainable Goals. This is very important, as we've heard from Abanti and other people, because it builds well-being and good vision and good relations as far as companies are concerned, but it also helps the employees within those companies to feel good about the company they're working for. And if I can take one point from Abanti's presentation, I regard the involvement of UK companies in India, businesses, private sector, as being rather like an iceberg. You see 1/10 of what that company is doing above the surface, but actually there is 9/10 that is operating below. And the figure that struck me in Abanti's comments was, 3,500 people directly employed, but the impact, the much broader impact of that company is really quite staggering. If we can look at the next slide, please. So what does the socio-economic impact report do? What's in our report? It shows how companies are supporting India and the SDGs that they believe that can best support the future of India. It works with the state and union territories in which companies are most contributing to SDG in India. It shows how companies determine their CSR and SEI work and how they carry it out. It also focuses importantly, I think, on the challenges and opportunities to do more. And I think that's an aspect that we want to focus on the panel discussion. And it also contains 7 case studies from different companies and institutions, all of who are focusing on trying to improve the 17 SDG, or having an impact on the 17 SDG areas which Mr. Kant outlined. So if we can just move on again, please. These are some of the key findings. What it shows is that, broadly speaking, UK companies are involved in significant activities in the 17 areas across India. We found that the areas that people most support the goals are in good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, affordable and clean energy. The interesting thing is that, what I find interesting is that around 1/3 combine their global strategy with an Indian-focused strategy, while another 14% are very much Indian-specific entirely. And I think that mixture of combining a holistic view as to the objectives versus a country-specific is interesting, and one, again, we might want to explore as to how the future should go forward. If we can have the next slide, please. And what can we do to do more? All right, half the companies that said the financial constraints are a challenge to supporting SDG. Clearly, the environment in the moment is difficult. There is a similar proportion that say that they want to understand more about SDGs and the contribution that they can make to provide their input. And clearly, that's something that we have to work on to socialize this more. And as I said, COVID-19 is giving a critical impact into the need for focus on social development. And again, maybe there's a point there that we can bring out in the panel discussion. I'm pleased to say that 45% of companies have not been impacted by the company's propensity to undertake socioeconomic problems. And in fact, I'm pleased to report that we've seen that the pandemic has led to an increase in the focus on social impact for 35% of them, which is extremely positive into the future. So let us move forward onto the actual launch of the report. So if I can ask my colleagues to put up the next slide. This is the QR code which will allow you to access the report. It's posted up here on our screen, but it's also going to be loaded onto the web. So without further ado, I'd like my colleagues on the panel to access the report and to hold up their iPads, or sorry, I shouldn't be advertising on this one, but hold up their iPads and or iPhones to so that we could all celebrate the report. And thank you very much. Excellent, Gavin. Thank you. Great stuff. Abanti, thanks. So I'm aware that we are running close on time here, and I'm very also keen that my colleague, the Group CEO of UKIBC, gives some pointers as to the future. But there are a couple of things that I want to ask of the panelists. I'm going to start with both Ms. Noda and also with Abanti, if I may. And it's all about, we've heard from a number of the panelists around metrics and measurement, and how the measurements that we have at the present moment are very much either governmental or state. How can businesses measure their own activities going forward? Ms. Noda, if I can ask you to comment on that. Is it important?
Okay, thank you very much. It's extremely important to measure results. And as Mr. Han mentioned, this index that government is producing every year by state is an excellent example of measuring the progress, where which state we are doing better, which state we need more support. And within that, we can also, the UNDP is also working with district level to also develop district level index. So it is, I think it's an excellent model. And in the business side, if you look at the details of SDGs, there are different indicators as well. I think MDGs, the previous version of these goals, had good indicators, but I think the SDGs has much more comprehensive indicators, and then as much as possible to follow those indicators is extremely important. Already the report itself is measuring what each company has been doing, and you saw the statistics where which goals are paid more attention to. So I think we are on the track of measuring it, but as much as possible to have concrete measurement would be, of course, good. Annually, but also we should not have short-term vision. So also to see what we can do for the next 10 years. And then keep the ambitious measurement, ambitious targets, and then annually estimate the annual target. I think that would be very important.
Abanti, maybe you can come in on this. I mean, Diageo is probably aware of business in the community in the UK. I mean, there you have a performance measurement on CSR. Is it translatable, do you feel?
Yeah, so Richard, I think for any business, measurement is very core, right? And you would know this from your long experience as well. When we come to social impact interventions, we bring the same hunger and desire to measure, which is the thing. And the reason why we need, the way businesses like Diageo see this, is that there are two reasons why we want to measure. One is because we absolutely want to be clear and certain about the impact that the money that we are spending and the resources that we are spending is having in the community. So you want to measure impact, just as we measure the return on investment of capex or advertising expenditure. We bring that same lens onto even money that we put behind social impact programs. The other reason why it's important is because if you want to build a sustained and virtuous cycle of reinvestment into social impact programs over a period of time, then businesses need to see that things are working. It's almost like delivering and showing that there is a business case for the money that you're spending. And you've kind of shown that even in the report, where a large majority of companies that the report covers is actually saying they will either increase or maintain spend. So I think those are the two reasons why it's important for businesses. I will say that we are doing three things towards measuring even more than we have in the past. One is we have very clear targets now for Society 2030, and these are 10 years targets broken up year by year. So again, we don't want a hockey stick. Everything is for the 8th and 9th year. So, we are building a 10-year plan in terms of targets. Two, we actually have CEO and global exec goals, including Ivan Menezes, our global CEO. He carries a goal on social impact, and part of the targets, therefore, are his and the senior exec team's accountability. And again, we know famously what gets measured, gets done, and happens in organizations. So that's the second thing. And the third is, you alluded to this, non-financial reporting is now part and parcel of business performance reporting. So we've integrated the two.
Richard, may I add a word?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. I very good to hear Shoko and Abanti's view, and absolutely agree with what they've said. I wanted to say that I think that companies should not be embarrassed to claim their commercial and financial results as being legitimate contributors to socio-economic progress. I mean, Amitabh Kant made the point that the distinction is getting blurred, but the figures that Abanti showed on the number of farmers who Diageo buys from, I mean, that is a really important socio-economic impact. Those purchases from those farmers will transform those farmers' lives, the income they get from Diageo. So I think that the commercial companies, the people they employ, the people they buy from, the people to whom they provide goods and services, and the impact of those purchasing, those employment, those sales activities on the people they reach are really important. And I think, again, Abanti's example of Diageo's activities in changing behaviors on consumption of alcohol, thinking about the way companies work on changing attitudes towards gender, I think is another area. And ultimately, increasing people's productivity, welfare, and the ability of the economy and people to improve their welfare is dependent on an increasing productivity of labor, capital, and land. And I think the way companies work to help communities increase their productivity through the way they operate, through the services they offer, through the products they offer, is also worth tracking. So I suppose I wouldn't want us, and I don't think this was suggested, to put socio-economic activity into the CSR bucket, because it's much bigger than that. Thank you very much.
I'm very mindful of time. So I'm going to, if you like, segue into Jayant's comments, if I may. Jayant is the group CEO of UKIBC, and he has the unenviable task of having assumed the responsibilities from me in September of last year. But if I can put the following point, that, and just leave it out there, is that one of the things that we've seen through COVID-19 has been a fundamental change in the way that we're all operating and behaving. And it seems to me that the increase of digital delivery of a lot of the efforts that are around the 17 SDGs, that's going to become more important. We're going to have to look and see ways in which we can actually deliver things more efficiently and more effectively than we had done previously, because I think COVID has flagged up certain areas of where we need to focus more. And that maybe is an unfortunate exam question for Jen, but let me hand over to Jen to conclude the the discussion.
Thank you, Richard. Mr. Amitabh Kant, Ms. Shoko Noda, Gavin, Abanti. Actually, which has been a very, very important last 55 minutes of the discussion. Let me begin with quoting Mahatma Gandhi, the father of the nation. And he gave a talisman to the Indian people, and he said, and I quote, "Whenever you are in doubt, or when the self becomes too much with you, apply the following test. Recall the face of the poorest and the weakest man or woman you may have seen, and ask for yourself if the step you contemplate is going to be of any use to him or her. Will he or she gain anything by it? Will it restore him or her a control over his or her destiny? And then you will find that all the doubts that you had with yourself will just melt away." So I think that has to be a thought of corporates, of individuals, everybody very, very clearly. As Richard said, almost 80 companies, despite being hit by COVID, despite their businesses having contracted and the profits having been lower, they have said that they would either increase their spend on these kind of activities or they would keep it the same. So that's very, very heartening. And various case studies which have been profiled in the report, they relate to a lot of SDG goals, and especially the SDG 3, which is on health and well-being, on SDG 4, which is on quality education, SDG 5, which is on gender equality, and SDG 7, which is on affordable and clean energy. So in terms of, a lot of people think that UKIBC only focuses on trade and investments between the two countries in the economic corridor, and now the focus has shifted to the enhanced trade partnership and collaborating with both the governments to make that happen, and eventually the declared objective of both the governments is to get into an FTA position maybe sometime next year. So I think that's very much there, but lots of efforts that we do are actually very closely aligned with the sustainable development goals. I mean, for example, if you look at the UK-India UK-India CEO Forum, which is for which the UKIBC works as a secretariat of the UK Prime Minister. It has a direct focus on climate change and the post-COVID recovery, which the UK calls as the building back better. If you look at the very large engagement that we are doing for the government, the UK-India Green Growth Equity Fund is very, very closely aligned with that. We are also a signatory to the British High Commission's pledge for gender progress and the gender equality. We have several groups in different sectors, but 3 of them are very, very closely aligned with the SDG goals. One on higher education, the one on energy transition and climate change, and of course on health and life sciences. Also, a lot of multilateral engagements which are on like G7, D10, Forum or COP26. We are collaborating with the governments to ensure that the objectives enshrined are actually achieved, and we in a way try to accelerate the process. So our spread spans various areas like higher education and skills, gender equality, good health, even industry and innovation, and you heard about the climate, and also on sustainable cities, and where our activities are very well aligned with the UK government's levelling up agenda, where we are working with several of UK's regions, so that they're able to attract investments, and investments actually are spread beyond London. So I think I'm conscious of the time, and I'm particularly, let me end with, I've spent almost 22 years of my life with the Tata Group, the Tata Sons and TCS, and I feel, and I'm sure Abanti as a former task officer would agree, the commitment for the society, it seeps into you, and perhaps it becomes a part of your DNA. Let me quote what Jamshedji Tata said. He said, in a free enterprise, the community is not just another stakeholder in business. I repeat, in a free enterprise, that community is not just another stakeholder in business, but is in fact the very purpose of its existence. So businesses must exist for the community. That was his motto. And thank you so much. At the end, I will thank especially those companies and universities which shared their stories which have been published in this report: the Can Energy, Rolls-Royce, British Telecom, JCB, HSBC, University of East Anglia, and of course the Durham University. But the work has been done by several other companies, and I'm sure in coming years we will nutshell and present the work in that space done by several other British companies in India. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Look, I think that Ms. Noda kind of made a very telling point, which is this isn't the end of the story. This is a point in a journey, and we very much welcome UKIBC welcomes working with UNDP, with Gavin and his team, and with members like Diageo to further the cause, because it is obviously fundamentally important. So I would very much like to thank the panelists for their contributions today. I'd like to thank everyone who's made a tremendous effort in preparing this report. I'd encourage people to read it and to comment on it. Comments will be, all very gratefully received. And suffice it to say, this is only the start of the work. And we look forward, UKIBC, we look forward to taking this forward with UNDP and with Fcdo and Gavin and his team. Very important for us to do. And I'm delighted that we've come to this point. So thank you very much indeed. And I wish you all safety and health. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.